The 2018 Brazilian presidential election was an ugly, divisive affair. From the widespread fake news on social media to the attempted assassination of the eventual winner, it provided a snapshot of a divided country. But when Jair Bolsonaro took office as Brazil's 42nd president in January 2019, Brazilians were rather optimistic about his presidency.
Juntos temos como fazer o Brasil ocupar lugar de destaque que ele merece no mundo.
Two-thirds of the electorate expected him to do a good job. Only 12% of voters expected his term to be a disaster. But clearly things have turned out differently. Jair Bolsonaro's style of constant confrontation and his lack of appetite for traditional politics have limited his administration's results and have eroded his support base. If 51% approved of the president back in January 2019, that political capital was burned within 2 months. No president has been this unpopular at this stage of their first term. However, Jair Bolsonaro's approval ratings have been fairly stable. The portion of voters who consider he's doing a good or a great job has never dropped below 28, nor has it gone higher than 40. For most of Bolsonaro's 16 months in office to date, the Brazilian electorate seemed to be split into 3 groups. 1/3 loves him, 1/3 hates him, and 1/3 is still sitting on the fence. But some polls suggest that Jair Bolsonaro's faithful support might be finally eroding. My name is Gustavo Ribeiro, I'm the editor-in-chief of the Brazilian Report. This is Explaining Brazil. For 16 months, the Jair Bolsonaro presidency has been a continuous flow of controversy. But in the past 2 months, things got much crazier. Amid the worst pandemic of the past century, the president fired his 2 most popular cabinet members, admitted he wants confidential information on federal probes, and has played down the severity of COVID-19 and the thousands of deaths caused by the disease. Combine that with a grim perspective for the country's economic future, and you have a perfect storm for pretty much any leader. A recent poll by Ideia Big Data suggests that these factors have begun taking their toll on the president's support base. Those who disapprove of the federal administration jumped from 34 to 41%, with 25% saying the government is flat out terrible. Moreover, support among the upper classes is deteriorating. Among richer Brazilians, a stark 47% of voters rated the government as bad or terrible. You can check out Ideia Big Data's poll on our website in the post of this episode. And I spoke with Ideia Big Data's CEO Mauricio Moura about the results, so let's hear what he had to say. Mauricio, first of all, I'd like to discuss your poll's methodology. In Brazil, the most renowned institutes use in-person interviews, while others use robocalls. But Ideia Big Data uses an app. So I'd like to ask you to tell us how it works and how you ensure the representativity of your polls.
Oh, thank you very much. Just first of all, we apply all methods, so we're agnostics in terms of methodology. But given the current health context, we are focused on telephone surveys. And one of the methodologies that we have a group of people in Brazil, around 1 million people everywhere, that uploaded an app. And when we need to do something, we send what we call a mission to those people. In order for them to answer surveys, record videos, take pictures. So every time we need a national sample, we run a national sample around 1,500, 2,000 people, and we send a mission, we send the survey to them. And of course, they represent the universe of citizens of Brazil. and they have, like, for example, 48 hours to answer that survey, and each one gets a reward to answer the survey. So basically, it's not a panel; it's a group of 1 million people that upload the app, and we always try to get a sample among those 1 million people. In that case, usually a national sample varies between 1,500 and 2,000, and we send the survey, and they answer back. Of course, all methodologies has pros and cons, but given the coronavirus context, we are focused on telephones and this app.
I think your company is the only one that has tracked the president's popularity since his first week in office and every week without missing a beat. What have you noticed in the 16 months, and how do you compare Bolsonaro's popularity to that of his predecessors?
Comparing the first term in office of Fernando Henrique Cardoso, Lula, and Dilma, the first year of Bolsonaro was worse. Actually, on the first year of the first term, all presidents in the data that we have were better off compared to Bolsonaro. However, I should say that we have two movements on the Bolsonaro popularity. First one, when he was about to get into office in January 2019, he had like the electoral asset or the electoral capital, and he was approved by 45% of the population. And in the first quarter of 2019, he kind of lost around 10 to 15 basis points. That was basically the voters that voted for him, not because of his platforms, but basically because they were against the work party and they didn't want to have the work party back. So by April 2019, like 1 year ago, he was around 30% popularity. And afterwards, he kind of he was very volatile, but he was basically operating around this level. In the last quarter of the year, from November to December, he gained some traction. He almost reached 40% of approval rates. And then after the coronavirus crisis, he kind of lost that popularity. They lost around 10 points, 12 points, depends on the polling. So he had worse compared to the other presidents, but I should highlight that he has a very solid group of voters, of Brazilians that approve him. That's around 1/3 of the country, 35%, depends on the polling. And they have been very consistent and very hardcore supporters. So, and especially compared with the last president, Michel Temer, he's basically much better.
And from your data, what is the demographic of a typical Bolsonaro supporter?
It's mostly concentrated on big cities in Brazil, the metropolitan areas, most male, more educated, high school, college educated, and especially it's older. It's above 35 years old, so more educated, older, and more big city resident, more Bolsonarista you are.
And what would be a typical Bolsonaro detractor?
It's interesting because from my personal experience, Bolsonaro, along his time in office, has really divided the country. It's much more divided compared to the years of the PT against the PSDB. And we have, in one side, this middle class that I described with higher education, higher income, so concentrated in big cities. And then in the other hand of the people that really disapprove Bolsonaro and it really didn't vote for him in the election are the more popular segment of the Brazilian population, low income, the very concentrated in the north and the northeast of Brazil, very concentrated in small and medium-sized cities. Really the people that live with an average of the minimum wage in a monthly basis. So basically, the poorer you are, less educated you are, more in the what we call the real Brazil, the deep Brazil, more against the government you are.
In your opinion, why is that? Is it because Bolsonaro, for instance, has talked about reducing the size of the state, and these people you've just described are the people who depend on government aid the most?
What we felt that was especially during the election time is that there is an anti-establishment sentiment from the Brazilian middle class against all the political parties, and especially against the work party. So this rejection and this anti-establishment sentiment was driven the public opinion in that side, and on the popular Brazil. The PT is not, the people don't reject PT. Actually, on the other hand, those are the people that were more affected by the income transfer program, Bolsa Familia. Those are the people that see that during the work party years they were treated as priority. So it's basically not the discussion about privatization or the size of the government or the size of the state, but basically about priorities.
We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Laura Quirin, co-founder of the Brazilian Report. COVID-19 has created a media paradox. Audiences are going up, but for many journalism companies, revenues actually is going down. Some of Brazil's biggest media outlets are trying to cut the salaries of their reporters by up to 70%. Not us. We protect our team because they bring you the best information about Brazil in English. But we do ask you to subscribe to the Brazilian Report, which is the engine of this podcast. There, you will find new in-depth content every day, special reports, analytical newsletters. Just go to brazilian.report/subscribe. And please, stay safe.
Mauricio, have these profiles changed over the past 16 months, or they stayed pretty much the same? Who hated Bolsonaro continued hating him? Who loved Bolsonaro continued loving him?
Yeah, Bolsonaro. He lost some voters after what happened with the former Minister of Justice and Security. He lost a group of people that are more upper class, middle class Brazilians that were very confident that with having Moro in the government was a positive thing for the fight against corruption, and they are not. They're right now rejecting and not disapproving the Bolsonaro's government. But on top of that, you are correct. Well, basically, the core group of voters of the supported Bolsonaro are still there, and the core retractors are still there.
And talking about what happened with Sergio Moro, who resigned, accusing the president of trying to tamper with federal investigations, how do you see that affecting Bolsonaro in terms of, like you said at the beginning of our conversation, the vote for Bolsonaro was not necessarily a vote for him, but a vote in rejection of the establishment, and to some measure to this anti-corruption discourse he embodied, and he gained even more strength on that when he named Sergio Moro, a former Operation Car Wash judge, to his cabinet.
It affects. We are talking about 5 to 10 basis points of popularity. However, I think the biggest chunk of supporters are right now more related with the economy and how the government will react to the recovery after the coronavirus. So he lost. We are measuring 5 to 10 basis points. But the next battle that he's going to fight to keep his popularity would be the economic recovery.
In that sense, do you have data, do you have polls showing which clusters of the Brazilian society are more worried about the economic fallout of the COVID-19 crisis? Where are people more scared of the future?
Everybody's scared, but I would separate that into two levels. One is the health level, and 2/3 of the population is scared to get the virus and are scared to die because of the virus. And this is increasing. This is a big number. We're talking about 66% of the population. And then we have 1/3 of the population that's much scared about the economic consequences, the unemployment, the reduction in income, the potential recession. And those that are more concerned about the economy, they like I thought, they live in the big areas and they have a better income. So we're talking about the middle to upper class, much worried about the economic consequences, and the biggest chunk of Brazilian population worried about the virus itself.
And do you see any correlation, cause-effect relationship between the fact that Bolsonaro, according to your polls, has lower rejection rates among poorer classes because recently the government has released a 600 reais emergency salary for the upcoming 3 months?
Yeah, that helped him, but that is a complicated matter because this, as you mentioned, it's not permanent. So, and we are seeing people that are getting this grant, this help, this relief, and spending as this is like a permanent income. And this is a very tricky thing because Brazil is a very different big country, and 600 reais in the city of São Paulo is one thing. 600 reais in the countryside of the state of Pará is another completely different thing. So people in the countryside of Brazil are getting richer and making 4 times their regular income, and people in the big cities are getting paid much less. So this is a very complicated scenario for Bolsonaro moving forward. First of all, if you're going to keep it or not, and second, how he's going to treat those differences. But yes, you are correct. That helped him not lose popularity with this segment of the population.
And how do you see the effects that his radicalization in his rhetoric is having in holding his core group of supporters? How do you interpret his political moves in this past few weeks?
Oh, that's a tough question. The only thing I can say on the public opinion side is that we have a group of Bolsonaro supporters that really believe that we have to shut down the Supreme Court. We have to have the military taking over. They're not the majority of Bolsonaro's supporters, but they are there. And they were there always, but Bolsonaro was kind of the symbol for them to express themselves. And also we have a group of Bolsonaro supporters that really believe that the social distancing is not the way to do it. So Bolsonaro does a really good job speaking to their core base, and he speaks to the core base for the more radical core base, yes, and he speaks to the core base that's much concerned about the economy.
And like you said previously, we never had a president that was this unpopular this early in his term. But every time there is a political crisis, we have some pundits saying, okay, now the government will not be able to hold itself together. And every time Bolsonaro proves them wrong. So do you think it's still too early to write off Bolsonaro? Do you see that red flags should be raised within the government and it is time for him to worry? How do you, going further than the data, how do you interpret the sentiment of the political population?
First of all, you are right. Bolsonaro has a lower popular rate compared to the others, as I mentioned, but he was the first president that in the first year of government only spoke to his base. The other presidents in Brazil, they try to moderate and they try to expand their base and talk to a broader group of people. That Fernando Henrique tried that, Lula tried that, even Dilma tried that. So Bolsonaro is the first one that actually started the government talking to his base. And 1/3, it's a lot of popularity, to be honest, given all the controversies that he has been. And it's a very solid one. So I don't think we should write off a president that is popular by 1/3 of the population, especially a president that has been involved in many controversial issues along the way. Different from many world leaders, he lost the opportunity to unify the country, to have a common enemy, to make and all those leaders, they got a positive output of popularity. We have seen leaders from all political spectrums that were very tough on the crisis response that are getting positive popularity, from Boris Johnson to Emmanuel Macron to Justin Trudeau, and Bolsonaro lost.
Even Sebastián Piñera in Chile.
Sebastián Piñera came from 10% of population to 25% today. This is amazing from what happened in Chile. And so I think Bolsonaro lost a great window of opportunity to grow in popularity. But on the other hand, he was very consistent on talking to his own base. Moving forward, I think the critical thing for Bolsonaro will be the economic recovery, because the deaths of the virus itself, he's going to put as on the account of the governors and the mayors. But afterwards, when they have to tackle the economic recovery, all the accountability will be holding on him. So, and that's going to be the critical moment if that popularity will stand or not. And I think he knows that. That's why he's so worried about the economy, so worried about getting people back to work, because this is something that he's not going to be able to blame anyone except himself.
Mauricio, thank you very much. If you like Explaining Brazil, please rate us with 5 stars and share this podcast with your friends. That's not the best way to support us. Actually, you can go to our website, and with as little as $3.90, you can subscribe to the best content about Brazil in English. Go to Brazilian.report/subscribe. We're bringing new content every day about how the pandemic is affecting pretty much every single aspect of life in Brazil and Latin America, all the way from the stock market to the sex industry. We also have a paywall-free COVID-19 live blog. That's it for this week. Stay home, stay safe, and I see you next week.